Tonight, you fall asleep in a city that has less than 6 hours left. At 5:12 in the morning, the floor beneath your bed will move. By sunrise, fires will be burning across San Francisco. By the third day, more than 500 city blocks will be gone. But none of that has happened yet. For now, the lamps are low, the streets are quiet, and the city believes tomorrow will resemble yesterday. You are lying in a rented room a few streets from Market Street, beneath a ceiling decorated with a thin line of plaster. Your coat hangs from a hook. Your shoes wait beside the bed. Somewhere below, a late cable car has made its final run, and the last vibration has already faded from the rails. Outside the window, San Francisco is settling into the cold hours before dawn. And if you came here because sleep has been difficult tonight, you do not need to force it. This story was made for the nights when the pillow has been turned too many times, when the room feels too quiet, and when the mind refuses to stop arranging tomorrow. Nothing is required of you here. You do not need to follow every street name. You do not need to remember every date. You do not need to decide when sleep should begin. You may stay awake for as long as you need. Let the city carry your attention for a while. Let the distant harbor, the soft wind against the glass, and the slow movement of the story take the work away from you. If sleep comes, you will not miss anything you need. If it does not come immediately, that is all right too. The night is long enough. I will keep watch. It is Wednesday, the 18th of April, 1906. The time is a little after 11 in the evening. San Francisco stands at the western edge of a country that has spent half a century imagining it as a place where ordinary rules end. Gold made it famous. Railways made it rich. Ships made it restless. People have arrived from China, Italy, Ireland, Germany, Mexico, Japan, Russia, the Pacific Islands, the eastern United States, and almost everywhere between. Some came with money. Most came with hope. The city has grown quickly enough to feel unfinished, even where it is crowded. Houses climb hills at angles that would look unreasonable anywhere else. Electric lights have appeared beside gas lamps. Cable cars pull people up streets too steep for horses. Telephones connect offices that still keep inkpots on their desks. Modern buildings rise beside wooden lodging houses. The city looks towards the new century and assumes that progress will continue in a straight line. Tonight, nearly 400,000 people sleep within it. They sleep in mansions on Nob Hill, in hotels beside Union Square, in crowded rooms south of Market, in family houses in the Mission, in Chinatown lodging houses, in sailors' beds near the waterfront, and in military quarters at the Presidio. They sleep beneath chandeliers and beneath leaking roofs. They sleep after restaurant dinners and factory shifts. Some have left lamps burning. Some have banked coal fires for the night. Some have placed bread, eggs, or coffee beside the stove for morning. Fire horses stand in their stations. Policemen walk their beats. Newspaper presses prepare the next edition. At the Palace Hotel, guests rest beneath one of the grandest roofs in the West. At the Ferry Building, the clock faces the dark bay. At City Hall, a great dome rises above a structure barely completed and already criticized for poor construction. At the fire department headquarters, Chief Dennis Sullivan has finished another day in a city where fire is an old and familiar enemy. San Francisco has burned before. Again and again, during the gold rush years, flames moved through blocks of wood and canvas. The city rebuilt each time. It improved cisterns, stations, and equipment. It trained a proud fire department. It learned to believe that fire could be fought. The earthquake will challenge that belief before breakfast. Yet, there is no reason for anyone to know this now. Dogs are not howling in every street. Horses are not refusing their stalls. The sea has not pulled away from the harbor. There is no supernatural warning written across the sky. The earthquake is not approaching through the atmosphere. It is not traveling towards the city like a storm. The forces that will release it are already beneath Northern California, stored in rock along a boundary hundreds of miles long. For years, the ground has appeared still while strain has gathered. By the time your room becomes quiet enough to hear the building settle, the future has already been prepared. You pull the blanket slightly higher. The air from the window is cool. A pipe makes a small metallic sound within the wall. A carriage passes somewhere beyond sight. Then the city returns to stillness. It has one night left in its present form, and you are inside it. The hours after midnight belong to people whose work does not follow the sun. Along the waterfront, sailors watch cargo beneath lamps that cast long reflections across black water. Steamers rest at piers with their funnels silent. Ferry crews prepare for the first crossings that will carry workers from Oakland and the East Bay into the city. In bakeries, ovens are already warm. Dough is shaped for customers who will never enter the shops that morning. In newspaper buildings, typesetters work beneath electric light, assembling stories that will become irrelevant before the ink is dry. A printer checks a line of metal type. A telegraph operator listens to signals from far away. A hotel clerk turns a page in the register. A nurse moves quietly through a ward. A policeman tests a locked door. Every action assumes the floor will remain beneath it. In your room, the darkness has changed almost imperceptibly. The lamp has been extinguished. The window now holds the faintest gray suggestion of morning. Though sunrise remains distant, you are not deeply asleep. Perhaps you are floating at the edge of it, where thoughts lose their shape and ordinary sounds become part of dreams. A footstep in the hallway becomes a traveler crossing a bridge. The hiss of a pipe becomes wind through grass. This half-sleep is often where people with insomnia become frustrated. They begin measuring the night. They calculate how many hours remain. They ask whether rest has started yet. Tonight, there is no need to measure. Rest is not an examination you can fail. Even listening quietly in darkness is a form of release. Let each sentence arrive once and then go. The city will keep the time for you. At 1 a.m, restaurants in the Barbary Coast district are still loud. Music escapes through doors. The district north of Market has a reputation for dance halls, gambling rooms, cheap lodging houses, and violence. Sailors with money can lose it quickly. Men who have spent months under discipline at sea find streets designed to separate them from wages before dawn. The noise does not reach your room clearly. Only an occasional suggestion of it travels through the city. A carriage wheel, a distant laugh, a whistle from the bay. At 2, fog begins to gather in places along the water. though the sky above the city remains mostly clear. San Francisco's fog is part of its identity, but tonight it does not conceal the stars entirely. The air is cold enough for people sleeping outdoors to seek doorways and sheltered corners. At 3, the city becomes quieter. The last theaters are empty. Restaurant chairs are placed upon tables. Street sweepers begin their work. The powerhouses that move cable cars maintain the endless turning machinery beneath the streets, great cables traveling through channels so that a gripman can seize them and pull a car uphill. The system is one of the city's wonders. Visitors stand at intersections simply to watch a loaded car climb. The earthquake will twist tracks, break power connections, and stop the cables. But for now, beneath the paving stones, the machinery continues. At 4, the horizon behind Oakland begins to lighten. The bay remains a dark, broad shape. Ferries show lamps as they move or prepare to move. Fishing boats shift gently. The ferry building clock tells the time to anyone awake enough to look. In houses across the city, kitchen stoves are being lit. Milk wagons begin their rounds. Factory workers wake. Servants rise before the families who employ them. Newspaper boys prepare bundles. Firemen sleep in stations beside engines and harnesses arranged for speed. The city is moving towards morning. Your room now holds enough grey light to reveal furniture. The washstand, the chair, the narrow pattern of the wallpaper, a framed picture on the opposite wall. Nothing has changed, yet the ordinary objects appear slightly different at this hour, as though they belong to a room remembered rather than occupied. You hear a cart pass below. A horse's shoes strike the street in an even rhythm. The sound grows and fades. At 5, many San Franciscans are still asleep, but thousands are awake. The first streetcars and cable cars prepare for service. Bakers lift bread from ovens. Chinese vegetable sellers arrange early deliveries. Longshoremen approach the waterfront. At the Palace Hotel, night staff begin handing the building to the morning staff. In the Presidio, soldiers follow routines older than the city around them. The commanding general of the Department of California, Adolphus Greeley, is away in Chicago. Brigadier General Frederick Funston is in San Francisco and will soon make decisions that shape the entire emergency. He does not yet know he is about to become one of the most powerful men in the city. Fire Chief Dennis Sullivan sleeps in quarters near his station. A chimney above a neighboring building has been damaged by years of weather and construction. Within minutes, it will fall through the roof and injure him so badly that the department will face the greatest fires in its history without its chief. The city has prepared for flames. It has not prepared for flames without water. Beneath the streets lie cast-iron water mains. They cross soils that will move differently during the earthquake. Some pass through filled land near the bay, where loose, water-saturated ground can fail. Others cross the very routes fire engines will need. When the ground moves, hundreds of breaks will leave hydrants dry across the burning districts. The catastrophe is not waiting in one place. It is distributed through pipes, bricks, timber, gas lines, chimneys, street patterns, and human decisions. The earthquake will last less than a minute. The disaster will last for days. At 5:10, the city is nearly ready for morning. A man opens a shop. A woman begins heating water. A ferry worker checks a line. A child turns in bed. You lie beneath the blanket, aware only of the cool air and the possibility that sleep has finally come closer. The clock advances, 5:11. No bell announces the final minute. No one in San Francisco hears the San Andreas Fault preparing to move. To understand what is about to happen, you have to understand how quickly San Francisco became a city. In 1846, before the gold rush transformed California, the settlement was small enough for its streets to feel provisional. 3 years later, gold seekers arrived by the tens of thousands. Ships entered the bay carrying people who intended to continue towards mines in the Sierra Nevada. Many crews abandoned their vessels. The ships remained in the harbor while the city spread around them. Some were used as warehouses, hotels, prisons, and shops. Others were buried as the shoreline was filled and extended. Even in 1906, parts of the commercial district stand over ground that was once water. The city grew through improvisation. Wood was fast. Brick looked permanent. Land was valuable. Hills were inconvenient. Streets were drawn across them anyway. Buildings rose beside buildings before fire safety. Water systems and engineering knowledge could fully keep pace. The city burned repeatedly in the early 1850s. Each fire removed old structures and created opportunities for new ones. People rebuilt because the economy demanded it and because San Francisco had developed a habit of treating destruction as temporary. By the end of the 19th century, it had become the financial and cultural center of the American West. Banks, shipping companies, railways, and manufacturers operated from its offices. The Transcontinental Railway connected it to eastern markets, even though the main rail terminus lay across the bay. Cable cars and streetcars stitched together districts divided by steep slopes. Market Street became the central artery. Hotels, department stores, theaters, and newspaper offices lined its route. Electric signs appeared. Photographers captured crowds, traffic, and buildings that seemed to announce a confident future. Yet, the city's beauty concealed unequal risk. Wealthier residents often lived on firmer hills and in better constructed houses. Working-class neighborhoods south of Market contained crowded wooden buildings, small factories, stables, and lodging houses. Areas built on filled land near the waterfront could amplify shaking and lose strength when saturated ground shifted. Chinatown, compressed by discriminatory law and hostility into a dense district, housed thousands in buildings where escape would be difficult. The Mission contained older adobe structures, wooden homes, and industrial sites. No district was safe, but danger was not distributed equally. San Francisco knew earthquakes. Residents had felt strong shocks before. The 1868 earthquake on the Hayward Fault damaged buildings across the Bay Area and was remembered as the Great San Francisco Earthquake until 1906 took the name. Smaller tremors were part of life. Newspapers reported them. People compared where they had been standing. Plaster cracked, chimneys fell. Then life continued. This familiarity could produce caution, but it could also produce confidence. If previous earthquakes had ended, the next one would end too. Building codes existed, yet enforcement and design varied. Many masonry buildings relied on walls that were heavy but poorly tied together. Unreinforced brick could support weight vertically while remaining vulnerable to violent horizontal motion. Ornamental cornices, chimneys, and facades added beauty and danger above pavements. Wooden houses could flex better than brittle masonry, but once fire began, they became fuel. City Hall represented the problem at a monumental scale. Its enormous dome and elaborate structure had cost years and money to complete. Corruption and poor workmanship weakened parts of it. When the earthquake arrived, much of the building would collapse spectacularly, leaving the dome standing above ruins like a symbol of confidence emptied from within. The water system also carried a hidden weakness. Firefighters depended on pipes that ran beneath the same ground, likely to fail. The city had cisterns and some independent water sources, but not enough to replace the main network across a vast emergency. Plans for an auxiliary high-pressure fire system had been discussed, but not completed. The city possessed excellent firefighters and powerful engines. Neither could create water. San Francisco's social life was equally complex. The city celebrated wealth and tolerated vice. It welcomed labor when business needed it, and excluded people when politics demanded it. Chinese residents faced federal exclusion laws and local discrimination. Japanese immigrants encountered growing hostility. Italian fishing families lived near the waterfront. Irish workers filled public services and trades. Black residents built communities in a city that advertised opportunity while preserving racial barriers. Women worked in homes, factories, laundries, hotels, and offices, though histories of disaster often recorded their labor less carefully than men's official actions. When the earthquake struck, all these communities would experience the same ground motion but not the same consequences. Some would find family networks. Some would encounter soldiers. Some would be offered tents. Some would be pushed away from valuable land while ruins were still smoking. Disaster reveals the physical structure of a city. It also reveals the structure of power. Yet none of this is visible from your bed. The room appears ordinary. The city outside appears stable. The streets have held their shape for years. The buildings have survived wind, rain, and smaller shocks. The human mind trusts what has remained true until the present moment. Floors stay below. Walls remain upright. Morning follows night. This trust is necessary. No one could live while expecting every object to fail. But tonight, the city has mistaken long stillness for permanence. Deep beneath the coast, two sides of the San Andreas Fault are locked. They have not stopped moving in the larger geological sense. They have only stopped sliding freely. The Pacific Plate moves northwest relative to the North American Plate. Rock along the boundary bends and stores strain. The movement is measured in distances too small to feel day by day. Over decades, those small distances accumulate. The fault holds until friction can no longer contain the stored energy. The city above does not feel the argument. It hears only horses, engines, and the bay. The time is 5:12. The first movement is not the great earthquake. It is a foreshock. At almost precisely 5:12, a jolt passes through the Bay Area strongly enough to wake many people. Your bed shifts, the window rattles. A glass touches the washstand with a small, bright click. For a few seconds, the building seems uncertain. Then it pauses. If you have lived in California long enough, you may recognize the sensation. An earthquake. People wake and wait. The mind asks, whether the movement has ended. This gap lasts roughly 20 to 25 seconds, long enough to sit up, long enough to place your feet on the floor, long enough for someone to say that it was only a small one. Along nearly 300 miles of the San Andreas Fault, the locked boundary has reached failure. The rupture begins offshore near San Francisco and spreads with extraordinary speed north and south. Rock that has bent over decades moves in seconds. The displacement reaches several meters in places. Fences, roads, and fields crossing the fault are shifted sideways. The energy enters the surrounding crust as seismic waves. They travel faster than any warning could have moved in 1906. Within less than half a minute, strong shaking spreads through the entire Bay Area. The main earthquake begins. The floor moves sideways. Not gently, not as a single clean motion. It jerks, pauses, changes direction, and throws the room out of agreement with itself. The bed strikes the wall. The chair moves. The framed picture falls face first. Plaster breaks from the ceiling and lands across the blanket you occupied seconds earlier. You try to stand and discover that standing is no longer a simple relationship between body and ground. The floor arrives beneath one foot before the other. Balance belongs to the building, and the building has lost it. Outside, chimneys begin to fall. Brick separates into individual pieces. Cornices break from roofs. Walls open. Windows burst. Horse teams rear against harnesses. People leave beds and run towards doors that have shifted in their frames. The sound is not one sound. It is thousands. Glass, brick, timber, metal, furniture, bells, human voices, horses, the deep movement of the ground beneath all of them. Some survivors later compare it to artillery, thunder, or an approaching train. No comparison is complete. Artillery has pauses. Thunder comes from the sky. This sound comes from everywhere at once, including the floor beneath the listener. The gas lamp in the hall tears from its fitting. A pipe breaks inside a wall. Across the city, gas lines rupture. Stoves overturn. Electrical wires fall. Fires begin before the shaking has finished. You reach the doorway, not because the doorway is necessarily safe, but because it is visible and movement needs a destination. The corridor tilts in the half-light. A neighbor appears barefoot, holding the wall. Another door will not open. Someone shouts from a lower floor. The staircase shifts but remains. In other buildings, staircases collapse. In lodging houses south of Market, walls fall into narrow rooms. In brick hotels, floors pull away from outer walls. At City Hall, stone and masonry drop through the structure. The Great Dome survives, while offices beneath it become ruins. Near the waterfront, filled ground moves differently from the hills. Loose soil loses strength. Streets buckle. Rails bend. Buildings sink or tilt. Water and sand rise through cracks in places. The city is not shaking as one solid object. Each district responds according to soil, construction, and distance. On firmer ground, some wooden houses survive the motion with limited damage. On soft ground, similar buildings twist apart. The earthquake has no intention, but its effects follow physical inequalities built into the city. The ferry building clock continues to mark the time while structures around it fail. At the Palace Hotel, guests are thrown from beds. The grand building, celebrated as one of the most luxurious in the world, survives much of the initial shaking, but will not survive the fires. At the fire station near Dennis Sullivan's quarters, a chimney from the neighboring California hotel crashes through the roof. Sullivan is terribly injured. The department's chief, who understands the city and its fire system better than almost anyone, is removed from command at the beginning of the emergency. The shaking continues. 45 seconds can pass unnoticed in ordinary life. Here, it becomes a long landscape. The body expects the motion to stop after each violent pulse. Another arrives, then another. Remember, this ground stopped moving a very long time ago. You are only visiting it through a story. You grip the door frame. The wall beside your hand cracks from ceiling to floor. Dust fills the corridor. Breathing tastes of plaster. A woman calls a child's name repeatedly. The gas smell grows stronger. The light has gone out. There is enough dawn now to see shapes, but not enough to understand them. Finally, the strongest movement begins to weaken. Objects continue falling after the ground has slowed. A brick strikes the street below. Glass settles. The building creaks. The city enters a silence that is not silence at all. People are crying out. Horses are struggling. Alarms begin to ring. Steam whistles sound. Somewhere, fire bells call companies towards emergencies before anyone knows how many fires exist. You are standing barefoot in a damaged hallway. The earthquake has ended. The disaster has begun. You are safe, lying still, wherever tonight has found you. None of this ground is beneath you now. For a moment, no one moves with confidence. The body remains prepared for motion. Knees bend. Hands stay against walls. Every small vibration feels like the earthquake returning. Dust hangs in the air and turns the early light pale. You hear someone below order everyone outside. Another voice warns about bricks. The contradiction is immediate. Inside may collapse. Outside, walls and chimneys are falling into streets. There is no perfectly safe direction. You pull on shoes without fastening them properly. The coat comes from the hook. The room you leave is already becoming part of a former life. The picture is broken. A drawer has opened. Water from the pitcher spreads across the floor. These objects appear recoverable. You imagine returning later. Most people leaving damaged homes imagine the same thing. Take what is needed now. Come back when the danger passes. The fire will make that promise impossible for many. On the staircase, residents descend slowly. Plaster covers the steps. The banister has loosened. At the entrance, a man holds the door open while others pass. The street beyond is filled with people wearing nightclothes beneath coats, blankets over shoulders, and expressions that look both awake and unfinished. The cold morning air meets dust. Chimneys lie in pieces. Windows have emptied into pavements. A horse stands motionless beside a wagon, too frightened to move. Another has fallen in its harness. A cable car rests at an angle where the tracks have shifted. The wires above the street hang dangerously low. No one yet knows the earthquake's scale. People look towards familiar landmarks to measure what remains. A church steeple, a hotel roof, the city hall dome. Smoke already rises in several directions. At first, each column looks separate and manageable. San Francisco has fought fires before. Engines will arrive, hoses will be connected. Water will cover the flames. This sequence is so familiar that many residents begin helping before they understand the water is gone. Firefighters run horses and apparatus through streets obstructed by brick. Some stations are damaged. Horses must be freed from stalls surrounded by fallen masonry. Alarm boxes have failed. Telephone lines are broken. Reports travel by messenger. A company may be sent towards one fire while a larger one grows 2 blocks away. At the first hydrants, firefighters connect hose and open valves. Nothing useful arrives. A weak flow, then air, then almost nothing. Underground, the mains are broken in hundreds of places. Reservoirs may still hold water, but the network cannot deliver it where it is needed. Firemen try another hydrant, and another. The result is the same. The realization spreads slowly, because accepting it changes the meaning of every flame. A small kitchen fire is no longer a local problem. A burning stable is no longer one building. Wind can carry sparks over roofs. Wooden walls stand close together. Coal, oil, hay, paint, and stored goods wait within the city. Without water, the fire department must fight through isolation, demolition, and whatever cisterns remain. The earthquake has also damaged the alternative sources. Some cisterns are inaccessible. Some pumps cannot reach the bay quickly enough. Hose lines laid towards waterfront water may cross streets that the fire will soon cut off. Chief Sullivan is carried to hospital with crushing injuries. Assistant chiefs and company officers take responsibility across a city whose communications have collapsed. No single person can see the entire emergency. This absence matters, but the scale may have exceeded any chief's control. Within the first hour, approximately 30 fires are reported. Some begin from broken gas lines, some from overturned stoves, some from damaged electrical systems, some from people cooking in buildings they do not realize are unsafe. Later stories give colorful names to individual outbreaks. One is remembered as the ham and eggs fire, said to have begun when someone tried to prepare breakfast. The details are uncertain and may have been simplified in retelling. The broader truth is enough. Morning routines met broken infrastructure. A flame that would normally heat a pan could now enter a wall filled with leaking gas. People attempt to save homes. They form bucket lines. They carry water from wells, cisterns, fountains, and even private containers. Shopkeepers remove goods. Families drag trunks into streets. Hotel staff move guests. Some residents climb roofs to beat out sparks with wet sacks. Others stand watching because there is no clear action available. The earthquake has made everyone a witness before it makes some of them refugees. An aftershock passes through the city. People shout and move away from walls. The ground movement is smaller, but fear makes it feel larger. Damaged buildings release more brick. The street fills again. You look back at your lodging house. It is still standing. Smoke rises several blocks away, but the wind does not appear to be carrying it towards you. You believe there is time. Someone suggests breakfast. Someone else laughs at the absurdity of the word. The sun has not yet risen fully. The city is already burning. The first hour after a catastrophe is filled with decisions made before complete information exists. Firefighters see flames and move towards them. Police see crowds and try to clear streets. Soldiers at the Presidio feel the earthquake and prepare for orders. Doctors step into damaged hospitals. Families search for missing people. City officials attempt to locate one another. Every group acts within a smaller picture. No one has a map showing all the fires, because the fires are still being created. General Frederick Funston does not wait for formal instructions from Washington. He orders troops from the Presidio into the city. The decision is controversial in later history because military authority begins operating quickly within a civilian disaster. Yet the immediate needs are undeniable. Fire lines require labor. Warehouses contain food and medical supplies. Crowds need routes through damaged streets. Looting is feared, sometimes more than evidence justifies. Rumors travel faster than reliable reports. Funston sends soldiers to guard federal property, assist police, fight fires, and control movement. Artillerymen accustomed to guns become demolition crews. Infantrymen carry supplies and patrol. The military possesses organization, transport, tents, and communications that the shaken city government lacks. It also possesses weapons and a command culture that can become dangerous when panic is treated as disobedience. Mayor Eugene Schmitz issues a proclamation stating that federal troops and police have been authorized to kill looters. The legal force and actual application of this order remain disputed. Stories of people shot for looting circulate quickly, while later investigation finds uncertainty around many individual claims. What matters to residents in the moment is that armed men appear on streets already transformed by earthquake. A person carrying possessions from a threatened house may look like a looter. To someone who does not know the house is theirs, disaster makes ownership visible and ambiguous at once. You return briefly to your room. The staircase remains passable. The gas smell is stronger, and someone has found the main valve. You collect a small bag, a coat, a little money, a photograph, perhaps a book, though it seems unreasonable to carry one. The choice reveals what feels irreplaceable when time becomes uncertain. Downstairs, residents debate whether to stay. The smoke appears thicker. A fire company passes, horses running, wheels striking debris. No one knows if the company has water. You step into the street again. The sun is rising over the East Bay. Ordinarily, it would illuminate a beautiful morning across the bay. Today, the light enters columns of smoke. Market Street begins filling with people moving in several directions. Some head towards workplaces out of habit. Some head towards relatives. Some move west, away from the commercial center. Others move east towards the waterfront, believing open water offers safety. The same route can appear correct and dangerous depending on which fire is visible. Firefighters discover that parts of the city can be defended only by preventing flames from reaching them. If water cannot extinguish a burning block, buildings ahead of it may be destroyed to create empty space. Dynamite is available in construction sites, military stores, and warehouses. In skilled hands, explosives can create a firebreak. In unskilled hands, they can scatter burning material, open gas lines, and create more fuel. San Francisco will use enormous quantities of dynamite over the next 3 days. Some demolitions will help. Others will worsen the disaster. There is no time for careful training. Men who have never placed a charge inside a city are asked to decide how much explosive will remove a building without throwing flame across the street. The work begins. An explosion shakes windows already cracked by the earthquake. People turn, believing another shock has struck. A building collapses into dust. The fire, beyond it, continues. Near the waterfront, firefighters attempt to use water from the bay. Fireboats and tugs can supply some streams. Long hose lines are laid, but distance, elevation, and damaged streets limit their reach. San Francisco's hills, which give the city its shape, become barriers to pressure and movement. Steam fire engines pump where they can. Cistern water is rationed. Every stream is directed towards the most defensible point. This means some buildings are consciously abandoned. A firefighter may stand before a burning home and know that water must be saved for the block behind it. Residents do not always understand. They beg, they argue, they offer money. The fireman cannot explain the hydraulic failure of an entire city while sparks fall around them. He moves on. South of Market, the combination of soft ground, damaged factories, wooden lodging houses, and numerous fires creates devastation quickly. Working families lose homes before they can carry much outside. Industrial buildings contain materials that burn fiercely. Warehouses feed flames with cloth, timber, alcohol, and oil. Narrow streets fill with carts. A family loads bedding onto a wagon. Another carries a sewing machine because it represents income. Someone wheels a trunk until a broken street stops the wheels. Then the trunk is opened and choices begin again. What can be carried by hand? Food, blankets, documents, a child's coat. People leave possessions in the road when smoke overtakes them. The city becomes covered with abandoned private histories, photographs, furniture, bird cages, mattresses, mirrors, books, pianos too heavy to move beyond a doorway. Some will burn where they are placed for safety. By mid-morning, the earthquake itself is already becoming difficult to separate from the fire. People speak of the disaster as one event, yet the shaking lasted less than a minute. The flames will travel according to wind, fuel, and decisions made hour after hour. You join the movement west, not because anyone has issued a complete evacuation order, because smoke is beginning to turn the sun the color of copper. Market Street is wide enough to seem safe until the buildings along it begin to burn. At sunrise, it becomes a river of people, vehicles, animals, and official urgency. Streetcars stand useless where power has failed. Their tracks guide movement even when the cars cannot. Delivery wagons compete with fire engines. Soldiers push crowds back from threatened blocks. Police shout directions that change as new fires appear. The great facades along the street remain impressive from a distance. Closer, damage is everywhere. Stone has fallen. Windows are gone. Interior rooms are visible through opened walls. Office papers move through the air. A desk stands near an edge where the outer wall has disappeared. The Call building rises above Market Street with its tower damaged but recognizable. Newspaper offices continue attempting to gather and publish news even as their own neighborhood burns. Reporters move through streets writing on scraps of paper. Photographers carry heavy cameras into smoke. The earthquake becomes one of the first great urban disasters documented extensively through film and photography. Some images will later appear so still and clear that viewers forget the heat, noise, and movement surrounding the camera. A photograph cannot record the constant fall of ash against skin. It cannot show how often a person turns to check whether flame has crossed the next roof. It cannot carry the mixed smell of smoke, gas, horses, damp earth, and broken masonry. You move with a crowd past shopfronts whose owners are carrying goods onto the pavement. Men roll carpets. Women pack clothing into sheets and tie the corners. A jeweler removes trays under police observation. A grocer gives away food that cannot be protected. A saloon opens barrels for men who believe the city is ending. Elsewhere, authorities order alcohol stores closed because drunkenness near fires and armed patrols could create new danger. Every street develops its own rules. The Palace Hotel occupies an entire block and has long represented San Francisco's wealth. Its central courtyard, broad corridors, and hundreds of rooms have hosted presidents, industrialists, actors, and travelers from around the world. The earthquake damages the building but does not destroy it immediately. Guests and staff leave. Some return for belongings. The hotel appears capable of surviving. Then fire approaches. Water is scarce. Flames enter upper levels. By evening, the palace will burn from within. Its outer walls will remain standing above a ruined interior. The destruction carries symbolic weight. If the palace cannot be saved, what can? Yet symbols do not matter equally to everyone. A laborer south of Market does not need a luxury hotel to understand loss. A Chinese merchant watching Chinatown threatened does not measure the city through Nob Hill. Each district experiences a separate ending. The broad narrative of San Francisco burning is made from thousands of smaller maps. On Market Street, an aftershock sends people running again. Some fall. A facade releases stone. The crowd compresses and then spreads. Soldiers attempt to prevent panic by forcing movement into lines. Civilians resent the commands but often follow them because the alternative is confusion. The army establishes communication points and begins organizing relief. Food from military stores is distributed. Tents are prepared. Medical stations receive injured residents. The response is improvised, sometimes effective and sometimes harsh. At Portsmouth Square, Chinatown residents gather amongst damaged buildings. The district lies close to fires moving from the commercial center. Its dense construction and narrow streets make defense difficult. Chinese family associations, merchants, and residents organize their own aid. They move belongings. They search for relatives. They attempt to protect temples, businesses, and records. The disaster arrives within a society already shaped by exclusion. For years, white politicians and business interests have wanted Chinatown removed from valuable central land. The earthquake and fire appear to offer an opportunity. Plans are discussed to relocate Chinese residents permanently to the outskirts. The people living there understand that losing buildings may also mean losing the right to return. They resist through organization, diplomacy, and international pressure. Their struggle will continue after the fire. At the Hall of Records, documents burn. Birth certificates, marriage records, property records, and immigration evidence disappear. For Chinese Americans living under exclusion laws, the destruction of records creates both danger and unexpected openings. Officials can no longer verify every claim of birth or family relationship. In later years, some immigrants will enter the United States as so-called paper sons and paper daughters, claiming relationships made difficult to disprove by the missing records. The fire changes lives far beyond the week of the disaster. You do not know any of this. As you pass through smoke, you know only that the city center is becoming hotter. Sparks travel ahead of flame. A piece of burning paper lands near your shoe and continues glowing until someone stamps it out. The wind lifts another. Roof fires can begin blocks away from the main front. Residents are told to wet roofs, but water is unavailable. They use buckets saved from kitchens, blankets, wine, anything that might slow a spark. The sun is fully above the horizon now, yet daylight feels diminished. At the ferry building, the bay remains open and blue beyond smoke. Ferries carry people out when they can. An estimated 75,000 residents will leave the city in the aftermath. Many cross to Oakland. Others travel south. For those who remain, open ground to the west appears safer. Golden Gate Park, the Presidio, vacant lots, beaches. The population begins a slow migration away from the burning eastern districts. You turn from Market Street and follow. Behind you, the city continues making sounds like weather, roaring fire, falling walls, explosions from dynamite, steam whistles, bells. The disaster is no longer a moment. It has become the day. South of Market, morning has arrived without order. The district is broad, crowded, and built close to work. Factories stand beside boarding houses. Warehouses stand beside family rooms. Rail yards, stables, machine shops, laundries, and small businesses occupy blocks where people sleep near the places that pay them. Many residents are immigrants or the children of immigrants. Many live by the week. Their savings are not in distant banks alone. They are in tools, sewing machines, stock, furniture, and rented rooms close enough to walk to work. The earthquake strikes this part of the city with particular violence. Much of the eastern district rests upon made ground and soft sediments near the old shoreline. The ground does not simply transmit the seismic waves. It amplifies and distorts them. In places, water-saturated soil loses strength through a process later called liquefaction. The earth behaves less like firm ground and more like a heavy fluid. Foundations settle unevenly. Streets crack, rails bend, brick walls collapse. Buildings that might have remained standing on stronger ground fail here. The damage traps people before the fires arrive. Workers and neighbors pull at timber. They remove bricks with bare hands. They hear voices beneath floors and make choices about where to dig first. A rescue can require hours. The smoke permits minutes. This is one of the cruelest conflicts of the morning. Leave the ruins, and someone trapped may die, remain, and everyone may be overtaken by fire. There is no official team equipped to search every collapsed building. Ordinary people become rescuers. They use axes, crowbars, ropes, and fragments of wood as levers. A man who has never directed anyone begins giving orders because he can see how a beam is resting. A woman crawls beneath a tilted floor because she is small enough to reach a child. A group forms around a voice and then disappears when the person is brought out or the flame becomes too close. Some rescues succeed, others are abandoned. The city will never know the exact number of people who die beneath ruins or in fire. Official estimates change over time. Early counts are far too low. Many deaths go unrecorded, especially among poor, transient, and marginalized populations. Later, historical estimates place the toll above 3,000. Even that number remains an approximation. Disaster statistics appear clean only after the individual uncertainty has been removed. Here, nothing is clean. A street may contain one known body, 3 missing residents, and a boarding house register already burning. The fire moves through roof spaces and yards. Stables ignite. Hay sends flame high enough to be seen over several blocks. Horses are released because there is no time to harness them. Some run through smoke. Others remain beside familiar stalls until people pull them away. Cattle and animals from markets add to the confusion. The city is not populated only by humans, and the animals cannot understand why the routes they know have disappeared. A factory whistle sounds continuously because its mechanism has been damaged. The noise becomes unbearable until the fire reaches it. Then it stops. You are moving west along a street crowded with possessions. A mattress lies against a lamp post. A family has placed chairs around a trunk, as though arranging a room outdoors. A woman sits beside a bird cage covered with cloth. A boy carries a clock larger than his chest. The clock is no longer running. People save objects for reasons that do not need to be practical. The mind under pressure reaches for continuity. A wedding photograph, a kettle, a child's school book, a musical instrument. To carry something from the old home is to believe another home will exist. Carts become the most valuable machines in the city. Every horse, wagon, handcart, and wheelbarrow is used. Prices for transport rise quickly. Some owners charge desperate families enormous amounts to move trunks a few streets. Others work without payment. The same emergency produces generosity and exploitation beside one another. You help lift a box onto a wagon. The stranger who owns it thanks you without asking your name. Within an hour, you will lose sight of each other permanently. This is how the day passes. Brief communities form around weight, danger, and direction. Then the crowd separates. Firefighters attempt to hold lines near major streets. Without reliable water, they use limited streams from cisterns and pumps to protect strategic corners. A wall is soaked, while the building beside it is allowed to burn. Men tear fences apart to remove fuel. Residents are ordered to clear alleys. Explosive teams enter houses and place charges. Some owners refuse to leave until soldiers force them. They have spent years acquiring the property. The idea that its destruction could save another block feels like a theory imposed upon a personal life. An explosion removes the house. Burning fragments land beyond the intended gap. The fire continues. Criticism of dynamiting begins almost immediately. Some experienced engineers understand how charges should be placed. Others use too much powder. Black powder and dynamite behave differently. Buildings containing gas, oil, and alcohol create additional dangers. A demolished structure can collapse inward and create open space. It can also scatter flame into several streets. No complete record can identify which explosion saved which block and which helped destroy it. The decisions are made inside smoke by exhausted people with incomplete knowledge. By late morning, south of Market is being lost. The fire does not consume every street at once. It advances in fronts, curls around masonry buildings, crosses through alleys, and sometimes jumps ahead. People who believe they are behind the danger discover smoke rising in front of them. Routes close, carts turn, crowds reverse direction. An aftershock unsettles walls already leaning. A brick facade falls without warning after appearing stable for hours. The safest rule becomes distance. Distance from walls, distance from flame, distance from the center. You continue west. The bag over your shoulder feels heavier. You consider leaving it. Then you adjust the strap. The day has only begun. Chinatown occupies several blocks north of Market, close to the old center of the city. Its streets are dense with shops, restaurants, temples, theaters, herbalists, family associations, and rooms divided to house more people than the wider city believes should be allowed to remain. For decades, laws and prejudice have confined Chinese residents socially and geographically. The Federal Chinese Exclusion Act restricts immigration. Local ordinances target laundries, businesses, and living practices. Violence has accompanied politics. Yet, Chinatown has grown into a complex community with institutions capable of organizing life under pressure. When the earthquake strikes, walls crack and chimneys fall as they do elsewhere. Fires approach from several directions. Residents move quickly. Merchants open stores. Families carry account books, ancestral tablets, cash, jewelry, and food. Associations organize aid. People search for elders and children. The district is not helpless. It is threatened by the same physical disaster and by a political one waiting behind it. White officials have long regarded Chinatown's location as wasted on Chinese residents. The land lies near the commercial center. Property values are high. Plans to remove the community existed before the earthquake. Now, with buildings destroyed and records burned, some city leaders argue that Chinatown should be rebuilt far away, perhaps near Hunter's Point. The language is presented as sanitation, safety, or urban planning. The purpose is dispossession. Chinese residents understand immediately. If they leave without a right to return, the earthquake will complete what exclusion politics began. The Chinese 6 companies, merchants, diplomats, and the government of China resist relocation. Property ownership complicates the city's plan. International attention makes open seizure more difficult. Chinatown will eventually be rebuilt near its original location, but the outcome is not guaranteed while the fire is still burning. For now, people are moved from place to place. The estimated 15,000 Chinese residents of the city lose homes and businesses. Many cross the bay to Oakland. Those who remain are directed towards segregated camps. At the Presidio, Chinese refugees are housed separately from white residents. Even in homelessness, racial boundaries are enforced. You see part of this movement from a distance. Families carry bundles tied to poles. A shopkeeper pushes a cart containing ledgers and small drawers. A child holds an adult's sleeve. Soldiers direct the crowd away from one street because fire has crossed it. The instructions may be necessary in the moment. The larger pattern is not neutral. Some people move towards camps where they will be fed and sheltered. Others move while hearing rumors that they will never be allowed home. The fire reaches temples, theaters, and businesses. Decorated balconies burn. Signs fall. Alleys fill with smoke. The district's visual identity disappears into flame, but community records and memories continue through the people carrying them. The destruction of municipal files creates another historical consequence. Under exclusion law, Chinese people seeking entry or re-entry to the United States must prove identity and family relationships through a bureaucracy designed to deny them. The earthquake destroys birth and citizenship records. Without those files, officials cannot verify every claim as they did before. In the years after 1906, some Chinese immigrants claim to be children of American citizens. They become known as paper sons and paper daughters. Coaching books teach applicants details about villages, houses, and family histories so that interrogations can be passed. The loophole grows from a catastrophe that destroyed evidence. It allows some families to reunite while creating years of secrecy and anxiety. This future is hidden inside the burning hall of records. History often changes through documents that no longer exist. The city's center continues to empty. Portsmouth Square fills and empties as fire lines shift. People move towards the waterfront, then away again. A man carries a cage of songbirds. A woman has placed household objects into 2 baskets balanced across her shoulders. A merchant tries to hire a wagon and is refused because the driver has another offer nearby. A white resident with money secures the same wagon. Disaster does not erase the inequalities of ordinary life. It can make them more visible. Yet cooperation also crosses boundaries. Neighbors help one another lift goods. Doctors treat whoever reaches them. Cooks prepare food outdoors. People share information about open routes and water. The city contains prejudice, but it is not made only from prejudice. It also contains relationships formed over years of proximity. The complexity survives even while buildings do not. By afternoon, fire has entered Chinatown. The heat becomes too great for organized defense. Those who remain must leave. The district burns. From the hills west of the center, people can see the smoke rising where the crowded street stood. Some watch in silence. Others begin planning return before the flames have finished. You rest briefly in a square with dozens of strangers. Someone passes a bucket of water for drinking. You take only a little. The bucket continues. In the distance, another explosion sends a dark shape upward. People look, wait for the sound, and then return to what they were doing. The day is teaching everyone how quickly the extraordinary becomes routine. By afternoon, soldiers are visible across San Francisco. Some arrive from the Presidio. Others come from Fort Mason, Alcatraz, and nearby posts. They carry rifles, but they also carry blankets, food, tents, medical supplies, and orders. The Army is one of the few institutions with enough organized manpower to respond across several districts at once. General Funston acts before receiving permission from Washington. He believes the city cannot wait. Troops guard the United States Mint, the post office, warehouses, and damaged banks. They establish patrols. They assist firefighters. They help demolish buildings. They direct refugees towards parks and open ground. At the Presidio, quartermasters begin distributing supplies. Letterman Army Hospital receives injured civilians. Military kitchens prepare food. The response saves lives. It also places armed authority into frightened streets without a clear civilian framework. Soldiers are told to prevent looting. The word expands easily. A person breaking a shop window may be stealing. A person breaking the same window may be trying to release someone trapped inside. A family carrying goods from a building may own them. A stranger may be helping. A patrol arriving in smoke has seconds to decide. Orders are given harshly because officers believe harshness prevents panic. Residents are told to move. Some comply, some argue, some are threatened. Stories spread of people shot without trial. A few deaths by soldiers and armed patrols are documented or strongly suspected, but the full number is uncertain and many dramatic claims cannot be verified. The uncertainty does not reduce the fear. A rifle pointed at a civilian is real, even if it is never fired. Mayor Schmitz's proclamation authorizing deadly force against looters is posted and repeated. The city presents control as a form of reassurance. For some residents, it is reassuring. For others, especially minorities and poor people, already treated as suspicious, it adds danger. You pass a checkpoint where soldiers search a wagon. The driver protests. An officer orders him down. The wagon contains bedding, household goods, and several bottles of alcohol. The bottles are seized. The family is allowed to continue. No one has time to appeal. Another patrol directs people away from a block selected for demolition. A woman refuses to leave a trunk. 2 soldiers lift it for her and carry it into the street. The same uniform can threaten and assist within 1 minute. At the United States Mint on 5th Street, employees and soldiers defend a building containing millions in coin and bullion. The Mint survives the earthquake well. Fire approaches during the night. Workers use water from internal wells, buckets, and rooftop tanks. They fight sparks and flames from windows and roof. The building becomes an island inside a burned district. Its survival is practical and symbolic. The federal money remains protected while thousands of private homes disappear. This contrast will not be lost on survivors. Yet if the Mint burned, the economic crisis would deepen. Disaster rarely offers choices free from contradiction. Funston establishes a command system while city officials struggle to meet. The mayor, police, fire department, and military overlap. At times they cooperate. At times authority is unclear. The army acts as though emergency justifies necessity. Later, analysts will study the response as an early example of federal military involvement in domestic disaster relief. Policies will be shaped by what succeeds and what causes criticism. In the present, theory matters less than food. Refugees need water. Children need milk. Hospitals need dressings. Bodies need removal. Fires need labor. Soldiers organize lines and wagons. The Red Cross begins coordinating relief. President Theodore Roosevelt urges national assistance but rejects some direct foreign governmental offers, preferring aid through recognized organizations. Donations begin moving west. Train cars will arrive with flour, blankets, clothing, and tents. The country learns about the catastrophe through telegraph reports that are incomplete and sometimes exaggerated. Headlines describe the city destroyed by earthquake. The fires are still deciding how true that will become. On the street, you receive a piece of bread from a military wagon. It is plain and slightly stale. You have not eaten since the previous evening. The bread tastes more complete than a meal. Nearby, a woman pours coffee into tin cups. No one asks whether the recipients are wealthy. For a few minutes, the line becomes its own small society. People speak quietly. They compare where they were. They ask about streets. They repeat names of missing relatives. Information passes from person to person. The fire is near the palace. The ferry is still running. The mission may be safe. Nob Hill is threatened. The water at one cistern is finished. A camp is forming in Golden Gate Park. Some statements are true. Others were true an hour ago. You finish the bread and continue west. The smoke follows. The city begins destroying itself in order to save what remains. Explosives are carried through streets, in wagons, and by hand. Charges are placed in buildings ahead of the fire. Soldiers, firefighters, engineers, contractors, and volunteers take part. Some understand demolition. Some understand artillery but not urban firebreaks. Some have used dynamite in mines or railway construction. Few have attempted controlled demolition inside a crowded, burning city after an earthquake. The principle is straightforward. Fire needs fuel. Remove enough buildings, and the flame reaches an open gap. Heat may cross, sparks may cross, but the main fire cannot continue without something substantial to burn. The difficulty lies in making the gap before the fire arrives. A brick building may resist a small charge. A large charge may throw burning timber across the very space it was meant to create. Gas lines beneath the building may rupture. Walls may fall outward into the street. Explosives stored incorrectly can detonate from heat. There is no room for careful experiment. On one block, residents are given minutes to remove possessions. A man carries drawers from a desk without removing them. Papers spill behind him. A family rolls a piano into the street and then abandons it because the wheels break. Soldiers clear the area. A fuse is lit. People cover their ears. The explosion lifts dust and debris above the rooftops. For a moment, the fire disappears behind the cloud. Then burning fragments fall. One lands on a roof across the gap. Men climb with axes and sacks to extinguish it. This demolition may help. The next may not. Some contemporary critics later argue that incompetent dynamiting caused a large share of the fire's spread. Others defend it as the only method available after the water system failed. Both positions contain examples. No single judgment fits every charge. The city is too large, the teams too varied, and the conditions too unstable. The most effective firebreak efforts occur where experienced people coordinate demolition with whatever water remains. One of the decisive stands will take place along Van Ness Avenue, a broad street capable of forming a barrier if buildings on the eastern side are removed and the western side kept wet. That struggle lies ahead. For now, dynamite is used across the center. Each blast resembles an aftershock and keeps nerves from settling. People trying to sleep in parks that night will feel the ground through explosions long after the fault has paused. This matters for insomnia inside the story. The body remembers alarm after the immediate danger ends. It listens for another movement. It interprets every sound as warning. If you know that feeling tonight, you do not need to argue with it. A watchful mind is trying to protect you, even when the room around you is safe. Let it borrow the distant city for a while. The alarms belong here. In 1906, the walls around you now are not these walls. The floor beneath you is not this street. You can let each explosion fade before the next sentence arrives. In San Francisco, people do not have that distance. A rumor says fire is approaching from behind. The crowd turns. Another rumor says soldiers will confiscate wagons. Families hurry. A third says the entire waterfront has collapsed into the bay. It has not. But no one can check every claim. Communication systems are broken. Rumor becomes an emergency technology, transmitting danger quickly and inaccurately. Officials use messengers on horses and bicycles. Telegraph lines work intermittently. Military signal units establish connections. Newspapers produce editions from offices outside the burned area or across the bay. Information slowly becomes more reliable. The fire moves faster. By late afternoon, the eastern sky is dark, while the western sky remains bright. Ash begins falling in districts not yet threatened. It lands on shoulders and blankets. Children collect blackened fragments of paper that once belonged to offices. Some pieces contain half a sentence, a bank statement, a theater program, a letter. The city's written life is breaking apart and traveling on air. You reach a hill and look back. From above, separate fires have begun joining into a larger front. Smoke hides the bay in places. Flame appears between buildings. The sun is a red circle. People stand around you without speaking. The view is too large for conversation. Then someone remembers a relative below. The crowd begins moving again. Nob Hill was built to look down upon the city. Railway magnates and wealthy families placed mansions at the summit, where views reached across the bay and the steep approaches provided distance from crowded commercial streets. The Fairmont Hotel is nearly complete. The Mark Hopkins Mansion has become an art institute. The Stanford and Crocker residences occupy sites associated with the fortunes that built the West. The hill represents privilege made architectural. On the morning of the earthquake, its stronger ground protects some structures from the worst shaking. Fire removes the advantage. Flames climb. Wind carries embers uphill. Water is unavailable. The wealthy discover that elevation can delay danger without ending it. Servants and residents carry paintings, furniture, silver, and clothing into streets. Wagons are hired at extraordinary prices. Objects chosen for beauty become burdens measured by weight. Some collections are saved, many are not. The Fairmont's exterior survives much of the fire, but the interior burns. The unfinished hotel becomes a shell that will later be rebuilt. The Hopkins Mansion is destroyed. The mansions of Nob Hill burn until chimneys and walls stand above ashes. For people in poorer districts, the destruction may appear like equality. Fire has reached the homes of men whose wealth shaped the city. Yet wealth will still affect recovery. Insurance, land ownership, credit, political access, the ability to leave and return. A mansion and a rented room can both become ash, but their owners do not begin again from the same place. Still, in the hours of evacuation, distinctions narrow. People carry what they can. They sleep outdoors. They ask for water. The body has simple needs regardless of address. From Nob Hill, the fire spreads towards residential districts and the broad line of Van Ness Avenue. Firefighters and military officers understand that if it crosses Van Ness in strength, the western city may burn all the way to the ocean. The avenue becomes a final defensive line. Buildings on the east side are selected for demolition. Troops move residents away. Fire crews gather remaining hoses and water. Private cisterns, wells, and military resources are used. The plan depends upon sacrifice. Destroy the threatened edge before flame can use it. Protect the buildings across the avenue. Men place charges in elegant houses. Owners watch. There is no promise of compensation. A home may be demolished and still fail to stop the fire. Yet, refusing could place thousands more at risk. The explosions begin. Houses collapse inward. Fire reaches the ruins. Crews soak roofs and walls on the western side with limited water. Residents help carry buckets. Wind throws embers across. Small fires start and are beaten out. The heat becomes intense enough to drive people back. Then they return. The fight lasts hour after hour. Van Ness is wide. That width matters. Urban design becomes fire equipment. The avenue provides space where heat can dissipate and crews can work. Not everywhere holds. Fire crosses in places or threatens to, but the main western spread is checked. The city beyond is damaged by earthquake, but largely saved from the Great Fire. The stand at Van Ness does not end the emergency. Other fronts continue towards the waterfront, North Beach, and the Mission. Yet it prevents a far larger destruction. For refugees already in western parks, the news arrives as uncertain relief. The fire may stop. The wind may change. No one trusts the first report. After a day of rumors, hope is treated cautiously. You are now far enough west to feel cooler air. The smoke remains, but the heat is less. A family has spread blankets on the grass. They make space for you without asking where you come from. You sit. The bag remains beside you. Inside are the few objects chosen from the room. You realize you cannot remember whether you locked the door. The thought is almost funny. The building may no longer have a door. Night does not bring darkness to San Francisco. The fire creates its own sky. Clouds of smoke glow orange from below. Flame rises above the eastern districts. Reflections move across the bay. Across the water, in Oakland, Berkeley, and on ships, people watch the city burn. Some believe they are watching the end of San Francisco. In Golden Gate Park, the Presidio, public squares, and vacant lots, refugees form camps. At first, the arrangements are informal. Blankets spread on grass. Trunks become walls. Wagons are parked in circles. Families remain close to possessions because theft is feared and because the objects define a small territory. A mattress on open ground becomes a home for one night, then another. Army tents begin appearing, but there are not enough immediately. The air is cold, fog and smoke mix. People who left in night clothes borrow coats. Fires for warmth and cooking are restricted because every flame now causes fear. Where they are allowed, they are watched carefully. The city has become afraid of breakfast stoves. You lie on grass beneath a borrowed blanket. The ground feels solid. An aftershock passes. The sensation is smaller than the morning earthquake, but everyone in the camp sits upright. Voices rise. A child begins crying. Then the movement stops. People remain seated, waiting. This is the rhythm of the first night. Exhaustion pulls the body towards sleep. Alarm pulls it back. Every distant dynamite blast becomes another possible earthquake. Every falling wall sends a sound through the city. Every shout may announce fire approaching the camp. No one fully rests. And yet small pockets of sleep appear. A man sleeps, sitting against a trunk. A woman holds a child and closes her eyes for seconds at a time. Soldiers sleep beside stacked supplies before being awakened for another duty. Firefighters rest on pavements with coats beneath their heads. The body takes what it can. This is worth remembering if you are awake tonight. Sleep does not always arrive as one clear crossing. It may come in fragments, a few minutes without thought, a softening of the jaw, a sentence not quite followed. You do not need to recognize the exact moment. Let the story continue whether you hear every word or only the rhythm beneath it. In the camp, someone shares food, crackers, fruit, a little milk for children. Water is guarded because broken pipes and contamination create shortage. Army wagons and relief stations organize distribution. People line up with pots, bottles, and cups. Social rules begin forming immediately. Where to queue? Where waste should go? Which tents receive the injured? Who has seen a missing person? Lists are written. Messages are pinned to boards. Names appear on scraps of paper. Safe at Presidio. Looking for Mary. Family at Golden Gate Park. Information rebuilds connection, one note at a time. Doctors treat burns, fractures, and shock. Hospitals damaged by the earthquake move patients outdoors. At the Presidio's Letterman Hospital, military staff care for civilians. Temporary wards are created. The dead are handled quickly because heat, sanitation, and space demand it. Some are buried without identification. The official number will never capture everyone. Near the eastern fire lines, the night remains active. The Palace Hotel burns. The Call building stands above flame. The Mint is defended. Nob Hill glows. Firefighters continue without meaningful sleep. Hose lines split. Engines run. Cisterns empty. A crew that has worked since before sunrise is asked to hold one more corner. Their clothes are wet where water was available and scorched where it was not. Eyes burn from smoke. Orders become harder to understand. Still they continue. The fire department loses men, equipment, and stations, yet does not disappear. Its struggle becomes a chain of local stands. A warehouse saved, a church abandoned, a wall cooled, a block lost. No one wins the city at once. In the park, wind moves through eucalyptus trees. The sound resembles surf. For a moment, with eyes closed, you might imagine the city beyond is ordinary. Then an explosion arrives. The red light pulses through smoke. The illusion ends. You adjust the blanket. The stranger beside you is asleep. You listen to their breathing. Slow, uneven at first, then slower. Without intending to, your own breathing follows. The city burns through its first night. You do not have to remain awake for all of it. Thursday morning begins with fire still advancing. The city is no longer surprised. It is exhausted. The pattern of response has become more organized. Military districts divide responsibility. Relief stations distribute food. Refugees are directed towards established camps. Fire crews know which fronts matter most. Officials begin estimating the destroyed area, even though destruction continues. The morning light reveals what smoke hid. Blocks of the commercial center are open ruins. Brick walls stand without roofs. Streets are filled with ash and twisted metal. Chimneys rise where houses have vanished. The scale makes familiar routes difficult to recognize. A person may know the distance between two intersections and still become lost because every landmark is gone. Market Street resembles a corridor through a furnace that has cooled only in places. Safes sit within burned offices. Bank vaults remain closed while owners wait for temperatures to fall. Metal has warped. Stone has cracked. Piles of debris conceal basements where fire continues. The ground is hot enough to damage shoes. People searching for property are kept away. Insurance adjusters will later argue over whether buildings fell from earthquake or burned afterwards, because many policies cover fire but exclude earthquake. This distinction becomes financially enormous. Owners insist fire caused loss. Companies search for evidence of seismic damage. Some records are destroyed. Some claims are settled. Others remain disputed for years. The language of the disaster is shaped by contracts. San Francisco will often call the event the Great Fire rather than the earthquake, because fire coverage makes rebuilding possible. Truth and finance become entangled. At the camps, lists grow. More refugees arrive from districts lost overnight. Some have moved 3 or 4 times, carrying possessions each time as the fire changed direction. The object pile becomes smaller after every move. A trunk becomes a bag becomes one blanket. By the time safety is reached, a family may hold only documents and clothing. Aid arrives from surrounding communities. Oakland receives enormous numbers of displaced people. Ferries carry the injured and homeless across the bay. Trains bring supplies. Local bakeries and military kitchens increase production. The Red Cross coordinates donations. The national response begins turning San Francisco from an isolated catastrophe into a shared American emergency. President Roosevelt sends support and public appeals. Cities contribute money. Private companies send goods. The flow of aid is generous but difficult to manage. Food can spoil. Clothing arrives unsorted. Warehouses need guards and records. Transportation routes are damaged. Relief requires administration at a moment when offices have burned. The army provides structure, though civilian leaders worry military control will continue too long. Funston's decisive response is praised by many and criticized by others. Questions of authority are postponed while flame remains visible. In the Mission District, firefighters and residents protect areas using wells and a functioning hydrant near 20th and Church Streets, remembered in local history as the Golden Hydrant. Water from this point helps stop fire from moving farther into the neighborhood. People form lines. Hose is stretched. The survival of blocks depends upon one part of the damaged system still producing water. The hydrant will later be painted gold in commemoration. At the time, it is simply water where water is desperately needed. The second day also brings more controlled demolition along remaining fronts. Lessons from the first day improve some work. Experienced blasters use smaller, better-placed charges. Firefighters coordinate where possible. Buildings are sacrificed to create gaps. At the waterfront, tugs pump bay water. The geography of defense becomes clearer. The western districts are likely safe. The northern waterfront and remaining commercial zones are uncertain. Smoke continues drifting over the camps. Ash lands in food. People cover containers. Sanitation becomes urgent. Thousands living outdoors require latrines, clean water, and waste removal. Without organization, disease could follow fire. The army lays out camp streets and rules. Tents are numbered. Cooking areas are separated. Medical inspections begin. Some residents resent the discipline. Others appreciate predictability. A camp is safer when everyone knows where water can be found. You wake after uncertain sleep and discover that the stranger beside you has gone. Their place beneath the blanket is empty. Perhaps they found family. Perhaps they joined a food line. The absence feels personal, despite the fact that you never learned their name. This is another feature of disaster. Strangers become important quickly and disappear without conclusion. You stand. The city to the east is still hidden by smoke. The day continues. By Friday, the fire is beginning to lose the city, not because it chooses to stop, because fuel, wind, and defense have limited its paths. Large areas are already burned. Van Ness has held as a western barrier. The mission has been defended. The waterfront fronts are controlled gradually. Firefighters and soldiers continue watching ruins where hidden flames can return. Walls are pulled down. Smoldering basements are opened. The danger remains, but the advancing inferno has weakened. After 3 days, the main fires are considered contained. The city is not safe. Aftershocks continue. Damaged buildings can collapse. Gas pockets remain. Ash conceals holes and hot metal. Water is contaminated. Food supply is uncertain. But the movement of population changes. People no longer flee every hour. They begin asking where they will stay. More than 200,000, perhaps 250,000, are homeless. Some leave permanently or for months. Others remain in camps. Golden Gate Park, the Presidio, Fort Mason, and open spaces hold tent communities. At the Presidio alone, thousands receive shelter. The city becomes a landscape of two forms: burned eastern ruins, crowded western camps. Between them, survivors travel to search, register, work, and wait. The first visits to former homes are difficult. A street may be identifiable only from its slope. A familiar corner is a field of brick. People use surviving chimneys, vaults, and street lines to estimate where rooms once stood. Metal objects remain within ash. Stoves, bed frames, tools. Coins fused by heat, porcelain broken but recognizable. Some dig carefully, others decide nothing can be recovered. The emotional response varies: crying, silence, practical concentration, laughter that arrives at something absurd, such as finding one teacup untouched in the ruin of an entire house. Humor is not disrespect. It is one way the mind makes a space small enough to survive. You walk east with thousands of others. Soldiers control entry into dangerous districts. Your lodging street is difficult to recognize. The buildings are gone. The fire reached it after you left. The room, the chair, and the unfastened shoes exist only in memory now. You search the ash without knowing what you expect. The photograph in your bag is safe. The book is still there. The objects carried out have become the complete physical record of the room. You realize why people saved strange things. Any surviving object can become an address. Nearby, someone finds the metal frame of a sewing machine. They touch it and leave it. Another person uses a shovel to search for a strongbox. A family marks the edge of their former property with sticks. Ownership persists even when walls do not. The burned area covers roughly 4 square miles. More than 28,000 buildings have been destroyed. Over 500 blocks are gone. Figures vary by source and method, but every measure describes a catastrophe larger than any American city had faced in modern times. The economic loss reaches hundreds of millions of dollars in 1906 value. Insurance payments will bring capital for reconstruction, though not equally to everyone. The death toll, once minimized by officials concerned about the city's reputation, will be revised upward over decades. More than 3,000 is now widely accepted. Names remain missing. The city begins burial, documentation, and recovery before the final smoke has cleared. A disaster ends gradually. There is no single moment when everyone is told it is over. One firefighter learns the line has held. One family receives a tent. One shopkeeper sees ruins. One child sleeps through the night. The emergency becomes aftermath at different times for different people. For you, it changes when you turn away from the former lodging house. There is nothing more to carry. You walk back towards the park. The city behind you is quieter. Tent life lasts longer than many expected. At first, camps are emergency shelters. Then days become weeks. The army and relief organizations create formal layouts. Streets are named. Tents are assigned. Kitchens serve meals at regular hours. Bathing, laundry, and sanitation systems are established. Schools and religious services appear. Not every camp is managed identically. Conditions vary. Weather turns ground muddy. Privacy is limited. Families who once occupied several rooms live within canvas walls that move in wind. Arguments carry. Babies cry. People hear every cough. Yet the camps also create safety and routine. A meal line forms. Work crews leave in the morning. Children play between tents. Lost person notices are updated. Residents organize committees. The homeless are not passive recipients. They cook, repair, clean, teach, and care for one another. The army eventually houses around 20,000 people in military-style camps, including approximately 16,000 at the Presidio. Many more live in informal camps or with relatives. An estimated 75,000 leave San Francisco soon after the disaster. The city's population temporarily falls. Relief policy attempts to prevent permanent dependency, a phrase that can hide both practical planning and judgment. Officials want camps emptied as quickly as possible. People need housing in a city where rents rise and construction cannot meet demand. The solution includes small wooden cottages. Thousands of earthquake cottages are built in parks and camp areas. Families rent them at low cost, with payments contributing towards ownership. When camps close, many cottages are moved onto private lots. Some are combined into larger houses. A few survive more than a century later, hidden within modern buildings or restored as historical sites. The cottages are simple, 1 or 2 rooms, wooden walls, a roof, windows. After tents, they represent privacy and permanence. For a family that lost everything, a small door with a key is a profound change. You are assigned work, helping unload lumber. The labor is repetitive and calming. Lift, carry, stack. The smell of fresh wood replaces smoke. Hammers begin sounding across the park. This noise is different from demolition. It points forward. Sleep returns slowly. The first nights, every movement wakes the camp. An aftershock, a wagon, a falling pot. Later, people learn which sounds belong to ordinary life. The nervous system revises its map of danger. A hammer is construction. A whistle is a work shift. A rumble may be a wagon. Not the fault. If you are listening tonight with a mind that still treats every thought as urgent, you can borrow this process. Nothing needs to be rebuilt before morning. The list can wait. The unanswered message can wait. Sleep cannot be commanded, but conditions can be offered. Darkness, a steady voice, a story that no longer requires decisions from you. You may let attention become less exact. The camp does not need you to count the tents. The city does not need you to hold the names. Rest can happen without permission. In 1906, recovery includes injustice. Chinese refugees face segregation and pressure over where Chinatown will be rebuilt. Poor families struggle to obtain stable housing. Relief committees investigate applicants and sometimes distinguish between those considered deserving and undeserving. Women without male providers, immigrants, and transient workers can face additional scrutiny. Aid is never distributed without the values of the society distributing it. Still, immense assistance reaches the city. Money arrives from across the United States and abroad. Food, clothing, and materials support survival. Medical teams prevent major epidemics. Sanitation work succeeds more than many feared. The camps do not become perfect communities. They become functioning ones. Weeks pass. The burned district is cleared. Temporary businesses open in wooden structures. Banks operate from counters set up in surviving rooms. Newspapers print. Streetcars return on repaired lines. The city refuses to wait for a complete plan before living. San Francisco rebuilds with astonishing speed. This does not mean recovery is easy. It means economic pressure, civic pride, and the approaching 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition push the city towards visible renewal. Property owners want income. Workers need wages. banks need borrowers. Politicians want the world to believe San Francisco remains the capital of the West. Within days, temporary permits are issued. Within weeks, construction fills the burned area. Architects and engineers debate how the new city should differ. Some imagine grand boulevards and monumental planning. Daniel Burnham had proposed an ambitious redesign before the disaster. The ruins appear to offer a blank page, but property lines, ownership, and the need to rebuild quickly prevent a complete transformation. San Francisco largely returns along its existing street grid. The new buildings are different in important ways. Steel frames and reinforced concrete become more common. Fireproofing receives attention. Building codes improve. The emergency water system, known as the Auxiliary Water Supply System, is developed in the following years, with high-pressure mains, reservoirs, cisterns, pumping stations, and fireboats designed so that one earthquake cannot remove every source of water. The system will later include the large underground cisterns marked by distinctive brick circles at intersections. The lesson of 1906 is built beneath the streets. Fire Chief Dennis Sullivan does not live to see it. He dies from his injuries several days after the earthquake. His death becomes part of the argument for stronger preparation. A city cannot depend entirely upon courage when infrastructure fails. Scientific understanding also changes. Before 1906, geologists knew faults and earthquakes were connected, but the event provides an unprecedented field of evidence. A state commission studies the rupture. Surveyors document fences and roads shifted along the San Andreas Fault. Professor Andrew Lawson leads the investigation. Geophysicist Harry Fielding Reid develops the elastic rebound theory. The idea explains that rocks on either side of a fault deform gradually as tectonic forces continue. When the stored strain exceeds friction, the fault slips and the rocks rebound towards less strained shapes, releasing energy as an earthquake. The ground did not move because an empty cavern collapsed or because weather disturbed the earth. It moved because strain accumulated along a plate boundary. This understanding becomes foundational to modern earthquake science. Yet science cannot predict the exact date of the next earthquake. It can identify faults, measure motion, estimate probability, and improve buildings. It cannot offer the certainty people most desire. Preparedness grows from accepting uncertainty rather than eliminating it. The city also reshapes its memory. Early official reports minimize the death toll. Business leaders fear that calling attention to earthquake risk will discourage investment. The disaster is often described publicly as a fire. Postcards and photographs turn ruins into spectacle. Tourists visit. Souvenirs are sold. The city promotes rebirth. By 1915, the Panama Pacific Exposition presents San Francisco as modern, beautiful, and recovered. Palaces rise along the waterfront. Electric lights cover the fairgrounds. Visitors see a city that appears to have mastered disaster. The exposition is temporary. The memory is more complicated. Families continue mourning. Insurance disputes continue. Cottages remain. Scars stay within buildings. Communities remember displacement. The earthquake becomes a reference point used to divide time. Before the fire. After the fire, you help move into a small cottage on a lot west of the burned district. The room is plain. One window, a table, a narrow bed. The photograph is placed beside it. The book rests on the table. The new room does not resemble the old one, yet the objects create a thread. Outside, hammers continue through daylight. At night, they stop. The silence no longer feels empty. It feels earned. Years pass over the city. The burned blocks fill again. Market Street becomes crowded. The Palace Hotel is rebuilt. The Fairmont opens after repairs. Chinatown returns with new facades, designed partly to appeal to tourists and assert a visible place in the city. The ferry building clock continues watching the bay. City Hall is replaced by a stronger, monumental building. The cable cars return. People who were children in the camps become adults who describe the morning for the rest of their lives. Their accounts disagree in detail. Memory preserves sensation more reliably than sequence. The color of the sky, the sound of walls, a mother carrying a trunk, a soldier offering bread, a horse running without a wagon. The moment someone realized the house would not be there tomorrow, photographs become the shared memory of people who were not present. Arnold Genthy's images show crowds watching fire and refugees moving through streets. Panoramas show a city flattened across great distances. George Lawrence lifts a camera by kites to create an aerial view of ruins. Film footage records movement through damaged streets. These images make the disaster feel accessible. They also conceal what lies outside the frame. The photographer chooses one direction. A picture of ruins cannot show a rescue occurring behind the camera. A crowd standing still for a moment may have been running seconds earlier. History is built from surviving angles. The earthquake leaves physical evidence beyond the city. Along the San Andreas Fault, fences remain offset. Roads are displaced. The landscape records the rupture. At Point Reyes, monuments later mark places where the ground shifted. The event becomes a benchmark for seismology and engineering. Future earthquakes are compared with it. Loma Prieta, in 1989, brings the memory back into television screens. Modern residents ask whether 1906 can happen again. The exact rupture will not repeat on a schedule that can be known, but the Bay Area remains earthquake country. Preparedness becomes an ongoing relationship with uncertainty. Secure heavy furniture, store water, strengthen buildings, protect gas lines, maintain emergency communication, plan routes and meeting points. These actions are ordinary because the lesson was extraordinary. The city survived not because the disaster was small. It survived because people continued after it. Survival does not mean everything was restored. Lives were lost. Communities were displaced. Inequalities remained. The rebuilt city was not the same city, but streets filled. Homes returned. The bay continued moving beneath ferries. Fog crossed the hills. Children grew up in houses built from refugee cottages. The sound of construction faded into the sound of daily life. You lie in the small room while this future gathers beyond the window. The bed is simple. The floor is firm. There is no expensive plaster above you. The walls smell faintly of new pine. A cup rests on the table. The photograph catches a little moonlight. You have learned that permanence is not the same as safety. A thing can be temporary and still provide rest. A tent, a cottage, a quiet voice in the dark. Tonight does not need to solve every future morning. It only needs to become night. Imagine San Francisco from above after the main fires have gone out. To the east, the burned district forms a vast gray field. To the west, streets and houses continue. The division is visible, but the city is still one place. Smoke rises from isolated ruins. Ships move upon the bay. Tents fill parks. People form lines. Construction materials arrive. The city is damaged, not absent. The earthquake lasted under a minute. The fire burned for 3 days. Recovery extends across years. Memory extends farther. This difference in scale is part of what makes the event difficult to understand. A geological release measured in seconds becomes a social history measured in generations. The fault moves, pipes break, fire spreads, authority acts, communities organize, insurance pays or refuses, buildings rise, science changes. Each stage belongs to the same story, yet no single person experiences all of it. You have moved through the story as one ordinary resident, but the real city contained hundreds of thousands of perspectives. A fireman at a dry hydrant, a Chinese merchant protecting records, a soldier carrying bread, a nurse working outdoors, a child waking in a park, a wealthy family watching a mansion burn, a laborer searching for tools, a photographer choosing where to point the lens, a geologist measuring an offset fence, a carpenter building a cottage. The disaster becomes history only when these different views are allowed to remain different. There is no need to choose one hero, no need to turn the city into a simple lesson. Courage existed. Mistakes existed. Generosity existed. Discrimination existed. The same person could be frightened, helpful, unfair, and brave within one day. Catastrophe does not make people into symbols. It reveals how human they already were. The city rebuilt with the materials and values available to it. Some changes made it safer. Some injustices continued. That too is part of survival. A city can recover physically while still carrying unfinished questions. San Francisco's ruins become foundations. Bricks are cleaned and reused. Metal is salvaged. Streets are cleared. Old boundaries return because property records and economic power favor them. New systems run beneath those streets. High-pressure water, cisterns, stronger construction. The past remains inside the rebuilt city even where nothing visible survives. Beneath modern traffic, buried shoreline and old ships still lie beneath parts of downtown. Refugee cottages remain inside larger houses. The golden hydrant stands in the Mission. Photographs remain in archives. The fault remains west of the city, moving slowly. History does not leave. It becomes quieter. The fires are far behind you now, not extinguished in the story, but distant enough that their light no longer reaches the room. The cottage is still. A soft wind touches the window. Somewhere beyond the hills, the Pacific moves against the shore. The sound cannot be heard clearly from here, but you can imagine its slow rhythm. The city has learned a new kind of night. No theaters are open in the burned center. No cable cars climb every hill. No grand hotel welcomes late guests. Instead, lamps glow within tents and small wooden rooms. Families speak quietly. A kettle cools. A child turns beneath a blanket. A soldier completes a patrol. A firefighter sleeps without removing his boots. A nurse closes her eyes beside a ward. The city rests in fragments. You may do the same. There is no correct way to fall asleep. You do not need to reach the end of a thought. You do not need to clear the mind completely. Thoughts can remain like distant camp lights, present, but not requiring a visit. Let them become smaller as the road between you and them grows longer. The earthquake belongs to the morning of 18 April 1906. The fires belong to the days that followed. Neither is happening in the room around you. You are listening from safety. The story can hold the danger while you release it. Your only task is to notice the surface beneath you. Still, supported, quiet. The muscles around the eyes do not need to work. The jaw does not need to hold the day. The hands can remain open. Breathing does not need to be deep or perfect. It only needs to continue in its own ordinary way. In the cottage, the photograph remains beside the bed. The old room is gone. The city that existed before dawn is gone. But the person who lay there has reached another night. Not the same night, not the same home. Enough outside. The last hammer stopped hours ago. Fresh timber cools beneath moonlight. The park tents move gently in the breeze. Farther east, ruins rest beneath stars. They are no longer falling. No flames are crossing roofs. No crowds are changing direction. The streets can be still. The bay can be still. The story can become still. You do not need to stay awake to guard the city. Others have taken the watch. The keeper remains beside the small lamp. The light is lowered. The names become softer. Market Street, the Presidio, Van Ness, Golden Gate Park. They drift apart and lose their edges. The date becomes only a number moving away. 512 becomes a quiet clock that no longer needs to ring. Morning will come when it comes. For now, San Francisco is dark. The city is breathing beneath smoke and fog, and you may rest. The room has become darker while you listened. Perhaps you noticed the change. Perhaps you did not. Either is fine. The mind does not need to witness every step into sleep. It can lose its place gently, the way a street disappears beneath fog. One moment, the lamps are visible. The next, only their glow remains. Then even the glow becomes part of the night. San Francisco will wake again. Workers will return to streets that no longer resemble the streets they knew. Families will search for addresses written on maps but erased from the ground. Engineers will measure. Carpenters will build. Children will learn new paths through camps and ruins. The city will continue because continuation is made from small acts repeated after certainty has gone. A board lifted, a cup filled, a name written, a blanket shared, a door placed into a new wall. You do not need to follow those acts tonight. They will happen without your attention. The people of 1906 will carry their own mourning. You may remain here, where the ground is quiet. Notice how little is required now. No decision, no answer, no preparation for disaster. Only the next breath, arriving without instruction. Then the next. The body knows this rhythm more deeply than the waking mind does. It has carried you through every night before this one, including the nights that felt endless while you were inside them. This night will pass as well. You do not have to push it. You do not have to count how much remains. Let time move without being measured. The cottage timbers settle with one soft sound. A branch brushes the roof. Far away, a ferry crosses the bay, too distant to disturb anyone. Its lamp moves across the water and vanishes behind darkness. No one needs to chase it. The city rests between what was lost and what will be built. You may rest between one thought and the next. If another thought appears, let it stand at a distance, like a person waiting beside a campfire. You do not need to send it away. You do not need to invite it closer. It can remain there until the night carries it out of sight. The keeper lowers the lamp once more. The flame becomes small, steady, and warm. The room does not disappear. It simply asks less of you. The story has reached a place where nothing urgent remains. The earthquake is over. The fire is over. The road is quiet. The watch is held. And sleep, if it is ready, may come without being called. You may hear only the softness now, not the meaning. That is enough. Words can become weather. Sentences can become water moving beyond a closed window. Nothing in them asks you to wake. Nothing waits for your reply. The city has finished telling its story, and the night can finally keep the rest for you until morning.